Welcome to
The Savory Scoop.
This is a conscious, safe space focused on graceful living for women. And today we are going to discuss the topic of change.
Yes.
So, how do you feel about change?
I feel like change is natural. There's so many different ways of change, whether it be from nature or decisions that we make from experiences. For me, I think I've had the most change in my life in the past 10 years of my life, for sure. In my late 30s, when I really started to immerse myself into working on myself, like releasing old ancestral trauma that had been passed on to me from my parents, generationally, from my grandparents. And that was really when I started to do the work, which helped to lift the veils and allow me to receive that knowledge that I was seeking out to rid myself of some of that programming and conditioning.
Yes.
Yeah. So since then, there's been so much change in my life. And I just know that everything is temporary, literally.
true.
So it's just very important to be present and embrace change, go with the flow, not fight it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know, I like how you said everything is temporary because there's a teaching in Buddhism. It's called anicca, and it's the concept of impermanence. And as you said, everything in nature, it's nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
Right? Those are things outside of us, what's in nature. But then even within us, the thoughts that we had in our 20s and 30s might be different from what we have today. The feelings and emotions that we experienced maybe last week, they're not the same this week.
Yeah.
So even within ourselves, things are constantly changing. Things come and go. And until I understood that concept, or as you're saying, you actually learn about these teachings, about awareness, becoming aware of these things that are happening in your body, in your mind. You're sort of on autopilot, just responding, reacting to change based on our conditioning, our trauma.
Yeah.
So back in the days, I used to struggle a lot with change. So when I was in Chicago for 3 years, we moved 3 times. And for me, that was just, it was just really, really difficult because every year I'm packing and moving and packing and moving. Not to say that is not, that is definitely stressful.
Yeah,
but
moving isn't fun.
It's not fun. But I could have still handled it differently, right? Not make it such a negative experience. And looking back, so I also got into this work of understanding, thoughts and patterns and habits in my mid-30s.
Yeah.
So looking back, I can see where that stress or that resistance to change is coming from. As a kid, I had moved. I was with my parents until I was 6, and then my parents had to leave me with my mom's sister from 6 to 12. And then I had to move to the US when I started to kind of build, the great friendships and getting comfortable with the school that I was in.
Yeah.
And then having to move to a whole nother country, and then having to live with my parents again. For 6 years, I hadn't. So change was like constant in my life. And so maybe I had built this aversion to it because I didn't want things to change.
Yeah.
Right?
Or maybe you wanted stability.
Right.
You were looking for certainty.
Yeah,
and stability.
certainty.
Yeah.
That being one of my, right,
Yeah.
exactly. Fast forward to now. Now, I don't see change as a negative experience, even if I have moments where I don't feel great about it. Like the feelings are not necessarily, oh, this is such a great, if the change is something, for example, if it's a financial hit, right? I'm not going to sit around and say, oh, I feel so positive about it. I'm probably not going to say that.
Yeah.
But what I do know and believe is that this is part of my growth. This
Yeah.
is supposed to happen to me because there is something I am going to learn from it that's going to make me stronger. So it's just the way I approach change that's become different. You
Yeah.
can feel negative. It's okay.
Yeah, it's
right?
all of the tools that you've learned through your journey and experience
Yes.
that help you now. And reflecting back, being able to look back in hindsight, and saying, oh, well, this is, why I might have handled it this way was from my conditioning or my programming, or I was just doing the best that I could at that time.
Yes.
We moved around a lot as well. I'm from Canada originally, and my mother wanted to leave the cold. So we moved to the States because my grandparents lived in Florida 6 months out of the year. They were snowbirds. So we moved to the States, and then she was a single mom working all these jobs, and we literally moved every year. I lived with her. I lived with my grandparents a lot of the time. So I can relate with what you're saying about just, adapting to change as a kid, but really seeking that security
Yes.
and that stability, which is something I really craved and needed, as an adult, as I started to grow and expand through my journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about, I think we've talked about the certainties, but we both value
Yes.
certainty and,
Yeah.
and as one of our values, I guess, core
Yeah, for
values.
sure.
So how do you deal with that now?
It's an inside job for me now. I work with myself, and I started to receive and understand and believe that I am safe, supported, and loved, and not seeking that from external things, but through the decisions that I make, knowing that there's going to be, not everything is going to go your way all of the time, but going with the flow. And when things don't happen the way you want to, what is the lesson in that? So I look for the lessons in everything,
love
the
that.
blessings and the
Yeah.
lessons.
Great
Yeah.
word. That should be in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Lessons.
That's one of our words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I just
wonderful.
I realize that change is it's inevitable. It happens every day. I had a conversation with a woman on my team at the restaurant, and she was so excited for New Year's Day to come because that's her day of releasing everything, reflecting on all of the change, all of the lessons that have happened, all of the mistakes, which are really lessons that we shouldn't shame or guilt ourselves
Right.
for, because without those lessons and the mistakes, we wouldn't learn and grow. And I've gotten to a point, I was telling her, where that's a daily thing for me. Now actually, within a second, I could reflect on what happened, in the past parts of the day, and decide that, okay, I'm changed. That has changed me as a person. I'm now a more evolved version of myself, day to day on a daily basis.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
And-
It's interesting, like all the teachings that we learn, like once it becomes a habit, just like everything else, you're able to discern, at each moment,
Yeah.
what's happening. Okay, which direction do I go? And there are times where probably, even with the discernment, we may still fall back into our conditioning.
Definitely.
And right, like I know I do.
Of course.
And that's okay.
It
Because
is.
even that falling is part of the practice. And just to
Absolutely.
notice that you're human.
Yeah.
And but the next moment you still have that choice to respond, that's going to be more beneficial or useful. The other thing for me that I'm going through is also a change within my body as I'm getting older.
Yeah.
So in my 20s, I did not know about body awareness. So I didn't really pay a lot of attention to my body. And if I got sick, I just got sick. If I was healthy, I took it for granted. I wasn't paying attention to what is going to make my body, feel better. I didn't know what to do other than eat healthy and run. Like those are the two things I grew up, learning.
Yeah.
That's how you take care of your body. Do
That's
a
where
lot of
you were at.
cardio and just eat healthy, whatever that means. back then it meant eat very low calories. That's what it meant, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was like dieting, just eating very little, like at least in the 90s when I was
Yeah.
growing up, that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
And then there was that whole low fat diet.
Which is so bad.
Yeah, right. We've talked about that.
Fat is healthy.
Yes, it is. And don't be afraid of food, right?
Yeah.
So, no, so in my 30s, I was still, you start to notice gradual changes with body awareness practice, right? You're like, okay, I feel more
Definitely.
tired. I need more sleep, as opposed to like when you're 18, you probably could go 2 days with no sleep.
Yeah.
So things start to shift a little bit, right? So now 40s, I'm noticing there are different changes. But at the same time, I have to share this story with you. So a few years ago, I went to this, I was a 40-year-old birthday party, and someone was giving a speech, someone very close to my friend who was turning 40. And she started talking about all the terrible things of turning 40. And I sat there and I'm like, and it was mostly like terrible things like physically, how your memory fades, and it was funny. Everyone laughed, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I felt not good hearing
Yeah.
that, right? You don't want to hear that.
Like, you don't have to subscribe to that.
Ooh,
You
I
don't
like
have
that.
to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and at the time, I was in my 40s as well. Well, I still am, but probably mid 40s, like 43, 44 at the time. And I wasn't feeling any of the stuff that she was sharing. I was actually feeling great in my body. I was working out. I was feeling good, and maybe genetics helps, like,
Yeah.
So I didn't like the aches and pain and this idea of like you can't start something new in your career once you're in your 40s, like that didn't resonate with me. All that being said, I still know with body awareness, like there are things changing. Like I cannot, like I could drink alcohol in my 20s and I could handle it well.
Yeah.
I can't anymore. Right now, if I drink, and also possibly because I don't drink every weekend, so my
Yeah.
body's not used to it. But even if I just do it once a year, the next day, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel good.
Same.
And I don't want to feel this way.
Yeah.
Right? So I just don't. It's best that I don't. And if
Yeah.
I do, I am ready. The next day, I'm like, okay, this is how the day is going to be.
Yeah.
So just love yourself through it.
Absolutely.
Right?
I can totally relate with the drinking thing.
Yeah.
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 Definitely. I stopped drinking 2 years ago. Every once in a while, I'll have like a drink or like a glass of wine, but I don't get drunk. I
Yes.
don't get buzzed anymore because it's just not worth it.
No.
And I realized that when I was doing that, it was a form of escapism for me. That's been a very huge change in my life when I stopped drinking alcohol and I stopped getting drunk and escaping. So many things changed for me. My life just switched for the better, and I started to manifest all of the things that I had always wanted and just didn't believe I was worthy of and escaping
You have
from.
to write a book. That sounds like there's a lot there. That's so beautiful.
I'd love to write a book
Amazing.
one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so right now, I guess with the aging process, it's not that things don't change. It's not that we can stop aging.
Yeah.
A lot of changes are happening within us. And that's the part of that, existence, right?
Yeah.
Everything is changing. Why would our bodies be any different?
Exactly.
But it's how I am approaching it that is different, as opposed to possibly if I didn't learn about these, Buddhist teachings and yogic teachings and, body scan meditation, like that. Those are the things that were the foundation to be able to look at one morning when I wake up and I'm like, oh, I feel crappy. Like I just don't feel good. But if I'm going to brush my teeth, and as long as it's not a sickness, right?
Right. Exactly.
If I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to still go, cook something that's good for me.
Yeah.
I'm still going to go to the gym and do some resistance training. So it's not something that you just go with the feeling, okay, I don't feel good, so I'm just not going to do it. Not to say, not, again, I always go back to sickness. Like if you're sick, that's the time to listen to your body. But the hormonal fluctuations, there are times you just have to be like, well, this happens every month to me, right? I need to figure out a way to respond to that week more efficiently. And that's going to benefit my body, mind, and spirit, as opposed to just react by eating, junk food. That's just going to make you feel worse.
Exactly. It's about having a deep sense of self-awareness, right? So,
Absolutely.
when you're feeling down, you're feeling a little bit tired, whatever it may be, hormonal fluctuations, allowing yourself to be gentle on yourself and do gentle things. Do a little bit of yoga, take a walk, make sure you nourish yourself with healthy foods, because the foods that we eat affect everything.
Everything.
That'll affect our hormones. It'll affect how we're aging with ease and grace. It'll affect your skin, your everything. Yes. Literally everything. Your hormones.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the products you use, those all affect your hormones as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the days you don't feel good, something my husband reminds me, which I've learned, but sometimes I need that reminder, you don't feel good. Do it not feeling good.
Yeah.
It's okay to not feel
exactly.
good. Right?
You don't have to be happy and on all the time. Like, it's okay to just be like, I'm okay today. I'm grateful for all of the things I have in my life, but I might be in a little bit of a funk, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Go for a walk anyway.
Yeah.
Don't expect to come back feeling like so positive and great, but just do it anyway, because something is going to shift. Right?
Yeah.
And I like what you said about gratitude practice. That always changes my mindset. Like it's something like just the fact that I'm like, okay, everyone in my family is healthy.
Yeah.
Like what a relief, right? In that moment, the shift may not be something so drastic where you're like, okay, now you're, running to the gym and, serving the homeless, and like, it won't be like that drastic, but at least it does change your, shift that mindset a little bit from everything sucks, my body's aching, the weather's, I don't know, my allergies are acting up. So all of that becomes less important when you start to do that gratitude practice.
Yeah.
Right? What are the things that are going well? Okay, everyone's healthy. I am making a living. Everyone's being fed. Right? Like simple things. I can go for a walk. I have legs to go for a walk.
Yeah. Going for a walk,
things.
gratitude practice, those are all shifts, which is change.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would say you're struggling with at this moment?
I personally am in a stage of expansion. I'm at a really great place with myself. So sometimes it's those external things that come along, or, maybe certain people that are in my life that I feel may be holding me back a little bit. But I just really feel into that. And then I do my practice and allow myself to expand and to clear out all of those obstacles and challenges and negative energy in the way of my growth and expansion. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I saw this great quote by, it was a model. What was her name? Cindy
Crawford?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So she said something along the lines of, I'm not 25, so why do I want to look 25? Aging is a privilege. It means that I'm still alive. Not everybody has that opportunity.
Amen. Yes.
And I feel that same way too.
I do too.
Because at my age and your age, I'm sure you see it a lot, and I don't shame anything, but there's so many women because of society chasing that like young look. Somewhere along the lines, whether it be advertising or just culture, somebody put into our minds that aging is a bad thing, that wrinkles are ugly and all of these things are ugly, and we need to do all of these artificial things to stay young.
Yes.
And I don't believe in that personally. I feel like it really is a privilege with the wisdom and the experience, and every little wrinkle, stretch mark, all of the things, are really a privilege. And they remind me of where I've come from.
I completely align with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we know that really the only certain thing is change.
Yes. Yeah, I completely align with what you said about aging as a woman. And as you said, the only certainty there is in this world is change. And with change, there's growth. So let's embrace growth through change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining us.
If you have anything you'd like to share with us about change that you've gone through in your life or how you deal with it and adapt, we invite you to comment down below or send us a message.
And if this is your first time listening to us and you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you have any questions or suggestions for this podcast, you can email us at connect@thesavouryscoop.com.
Or catch us on social media at The Savory Scoop.